Hello and welcome to my reflection for the Mindfulness in Nature activity. For this assignment, I dedicated time to step away from the busyness of daily life and intentionally immerse myself in a natural setting. I spent about 30 minutes outdoors in a nearby park, and during that time I combined two practices: mindful eating and silent meditation. What follows is a detailed reflection on my experience, what I noticed through my senses, and the meaning it held for me. I began by finding a quiet area under a large tree. The grass around me was thick and soft, scattered with patches of fallen leaves that created a natural carpet. I chose this particular spot because it felt sheltered, but still open enough for me to notice the larger environment. The tree itself was tall and steady, with strong branches that stretched outward and upward, creating shifting patterns of light and shade as the sun moved. I could hear faint movement in the branches as the wind brushed through them. For my mindful eating practice, I brought a simple snack, an apple. Normally, I eat quickly, sometimes while multitasking or thinking about the next task on my list. But this time I slowed down. I held the apple in my hand, noticing its smooth skin, the slight coolness from being washed before I left home, and the small imperfections on its surface. When I took my first bite, I paid attention to the crisp sound that echoed in the quietness around me. The sweetness spread slowly across my tongue, and I realized that the flavor felt more vivid simply because I was truly paying attention. Each chew had a rhythm to it, and I could feel the texture breaking down from firm crunch to soft pulp. It was refreshing, both physically and mentally, to allow something so ordinary to feel new. Once I finished the apple, I transitioned into a silent meditation. I set the intention to focus on my breathing and the sounds of the environment. With my eyes closed, the world became a layering of sensations. I inhaled deeply, feeling the coolness of the air as it entered, and the warmth as I exhaled. My chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm that grounded me in the moment. As I sat in silence, the sounds of nature revealed themselves in detail. Birds chirped in short bursts, sometimes near, sometimes further away. The rustle of the leaves had a soft, rhythmic pattern, like whispers passing through the branches. In the background, I could faintly hear people walking and talking on a nearby path, their voices blending into the ambient hum of life. Even the distant sound of traffic felt less like a distraction and more like another layer of the environment, reminding me that nature and human life coexist. The smells around me were subtle but grounding. There was the earthy scent of grass and soil, mixed with a faint freshness carried by the breeze. I thought I detected hints of floral fragrance, perhaps from flowers I couldn't see directly from where I sat. The combination was calming, like breathing in something pure and unprocessed. When I opened my eyes again, I allowed myself to notice the visual details. The shades of green were more vibrant than I had realized at first. The deep, almost shadowy greens of the tree trunks, the lighter tones of grass, and the gentle sparkle of sunlight flickering between leaves. Each gust of wind changed the picture slightly as branches swayed and shadows shifted across the ground. The scene was simple, but it felt alive. What stood out most during this first part of my practice was a growing sense of awe. It wasn't awe in the sense of witnessing something huge or extraordinary, but awe in realizing how much richness exists in ordinary spaces. A city park, something I usually pass through without much thought, became a space full of layers, colors, and sensations. I realized how easy it is to miss these details when moving quickly or staying glued to screens indoors. By the time my 30 minutes came to an end, I felt calmer, lighter, and more connected. Something as small as slowing down to taste an apple or notice the rustle of leaves had shifted my perspective. This simple practice reminded me that mindfulness doesn't require complicated tools or special settings. It only requires intention and attention. As I continued reflecting on my time outdoors, I realized that the experience had unfolded in stages, almost like chapters of a small journey. The first chapter was the act of simply arriving, of setting down my things, choosing a spot, and letting myself settle into the environment. That in itself was a shift because I rarely pause to arrive anywhere. Normally, I move from one obligation to another without transition. But here, I could sense that arriving intentionally was part of the mindfulness practice. The next chapter was mindful eating. The apple was simple, ordinary, yet through attention it became a teacher. It reminded me that food is not just fuel to be consumed quickly, but an experience to be noticed and appreciated. I thought about the orchard it may have come from, the soil that nourished it, the rain that watered it, the people who harvested and transported it. Suddenly, a single apple represented a whole network of life and effort. Eating slowly allowed me to honor that process, even if only silently. The meditation deepened this awareness. At first, I noticed the outer layers, the obvious sounds like birds or the breeze. But after a while, subtler details emerged. The way the wind shifted directions, the rhythm of footsteps as someone jogged past. Even the quiet moments of stillness, when no obvious sound was present, felt like a kind of sound in themselves. Like silence was its own presence. It amazed me how the mind, when given space, begins to uncover textures in the ordinary. One of the strongest impressions came through the sense of touch. Sitting on the ground, I could feel the firmness of the earth supporting me. The roughness of leaves crumbled beneath my hands when I absent-mindedly brushed them aside. The air itself was a kind of touch, the coolness of a breeze, the warmth when the sun fell directly on my face. These small tactile sensations grounded me in a way that words can hardly capture. The sense of smell also played a quiet but important role. Fresh air has a way of clearing mental fog, and the earthy fragrance of soil and grass made me feel rooted, connected, and more alive. Compared to indoor air, filtered, processed, or stagnant, this was a reminder of how the natural world has a restorative quality. Breathing felt easier, as if nature itself was inviting me to slow down. Visually, the park revealed more the longer I looked. The play of light through the branches created patterns that constantly changed. I found myself mesmerized by the shifting shadows on the ground, tiny reminders that nothing in nature is static. Every moment was unique, a blend of movement, light, and color that would never repeat in quite the same way. That realization alone carried a sense of awe, how fleeting and precious each moment truly is. As time passed, I noticed changes in myself as well. At the beginning, my mind was busy with thoughts about assignments, schedules, and tasks. But by the end, those thoughts had softened, almost dissolved. They were replaced by a sense of spaciousness, as though I had been given more room inside myself. My breathing had slowed. My body felt lighter, more at ease. It surprised me how profound this shift was, considering it happened in less than an hour and without anything elaborate. No special tools, no exotic location, just attention. What became most meaningful to me was the realization that mindfulness is less about adding something to life and more about stripping away distractions. Nature was already there, offering its sounds, smells, textures, and sights. The apple was already flavorful and nourishing. My breath was already steady and reliable. The only thing missing, most of the time, is my awareness. This practice reminded me that awareness is the bridge between ordinary life and extraordinary experience. Another surprising moment was the sense of connection. Even though I was physically alone in the park, I didn't feel lonely. Instead, I felt accompanied by the tree that gave me shade, by the birds whose songs filled the air, by the gentle wind that wrapped around me. There was a quiet comfort in realizing that nature itself can be a kind of community,